Daisy Edgar-Jones plays Marianne Sheridan in Hulu's breakout hit miniseries Normal People. I'm Riley Chow, contributing editor at Gold Derby. Now, Marianne, she exudes such a confidence that I feel like it's at odds with the dialogue that she says, especially in the early episodes when she's in high school. She's kind of always putting herself down, but there's this kind of self-assuredness underneath the surface. Uh, so you really believe it when it comes out in college that that's kind of who she really is. Can you talk about layering your performance with this characterization?
Yeah, I mean, it's so interesting that you say that because that was something I found really fascinating about Marianne in the book because, what was really exciting about playing that character is you got such a range of views of her. You got, a completely detailed, beautiful written inner life that you had whenever you read her chapters, but then you also had a different perspective, a kind of more objective perspective from Connell's chapters. So, I really found it interesting playing with all the different sides of Marianne that are that exist because for me, Marianne is somebody who is incredibly sensitive and very vulnerable. And even though in Connell's chapters, he feels she's very sure of herself, I know that she isn't from when I read hers. So I think whenever it came to playing her, I would kind of, I guess, take I would use camera quite a lot. I found different kind of shots quite an interesting way of exploring different things that you allow to kind of be played, if you know what I mean. So, like, for example, when it came to like a wide shot, when it was in a conversation with another character, there would be an element of playing the side of Marianne that Connell sees, which sometimes is quite abrasive and quite to the point and whatnot. But then when it would be, Lenny would call it sort of the Marianne and Connell special, which is a camera that is right there with a very shallow depth of field that would kind of range all around. I always felt like that's the kind of lens that I show what's really going on in Marianne's head. The more kind of deep and vulnerable inner life that the real conflict that she has when it comes to her conversations with Connell. So it was a real fun joy to kind of explore those two different things and yeah, work out in which scenes and in which moments you play with which perspective, if you know what I mean. It was a real challenge, but it was fun.
I want to ask about your eyes specifically because they're so expressive, and I feel like whereas Connell, maybe his eyes are kind of always darting around because he doesn't want to make eye contact. A lot of the time, you're kind of listening to him or looking at him, and we see kind of a performance in that regard.
Mm.
So, can you talk about how you played that?
Yeah, it's really interesting that you say that as well because that was a big thing that I remember reading in the book. Is in earlier on in the first kind of chapters, Connell talks about Marianne's eyes always like burning into the back of his head, and how like he there's a really beautiful image where he's emailing her when they're kind of emailing in the later block, in the later kind of chapters, and he sees a deer and he says that it reminds him of Marianne. And I always think, I always think of deers who have these kind of very expressive eyes, and she uses a lot of eye contact. So that was actually what I would try and do, a lot of staring and a lot of kind of, because it feels like it talks a lot in the book of her always having to kind of um get everything completely over explained. So if he's ever kind of, if Connor was ever quiet, Marianne would always go like, are you all right, like is anything wrong? Because she's very observant, like she observes so much, and she's very sensitive to Connor's feelings and to everyone else's feelings. So yeah, I used eye contact a lot, and to kind of portray that side of her.
So the show tracks, many years, and I'm wondering how you kept track of where you were in the story, not just from, the director assisting you, but if you had any of your own tools, and also, like, how much did it even matter? Because so much of the relationship I found kind of goes in circles, or they hit the same beats. Uh,
Yeah, I mean, because it's interesting because I think so much of the story is about the ripple effect on someone's life of a very small moment that happens. So, the ripple effect of Marianne saying, "Oh, I think you should study English at Trinity." that feels that that's a very small moment. It's quite a small scene, but actually we see the incredible effect that has on Connell's whole life, and will do for the rest of his life. If he hadn't met Marianne and she hadn't said those words, he would have been a completely different person. And I think that's what's so beautiful about it, but also tracking that ripple effect when you're playing things out of sync was quite a challenge. And Marianne, she does really blossom. She has a real kind of sort of blossoming moment when she moves to Trinity, where suddenly she's the popular one, and she seemingly is very fits in and is very happy. Even though I think what was interesting is I don't think Marianne actually is. I think she's playing the part of being the popular person, but I don't think she feels at home there, which we realise as the series goes on. But anyway, I think for me it was kind of sort of, obviously having the book was really helpful because we weren't filming in order, so you could always go, where's my character's head at? I'll just read the chapter, which was obviously really helpful. But costume and hair also is incredibly important, and I had a kind of very different hairstyle as the series went on. So I had a very sort of short little fringe that I had to live with for a long time, and very long kind of hair. And then for Trinity it was very short hair, and we put pieces in, so I had a very long boot with a heel. It's incredible the effect that has, and also how young and like awful a school uniform makes you feel. Like you're like, oh, I'm going through puberty again. Like it's incredible the effect of that. So I think that was really helpful. But I did have quite a mapped out difference between Sligo and Trinity Marianne. So it felt I felt very at home in Sligo Marianne, and finding Trinity Marianne was a little bit more nuanced. So it took a bit more time, but yeah, I definitely had an idea of the differences, which really helped. But it was a challenge.
I was telling you that I think I've seen this backdrop before for you, in so many other interviews. And usually there's Lenny Abrahamson, in a box below or above us. And so I was wondering if you could actually talk about working with Hetty McDonald, because she directed, half the season, but we haven't really heard a ton from her. Yeah, so how did she differ?
She's incredible, and I would love to talk about her forever. she's an amazing director, and like she was really brilliant, because I think it was really interesting to have two different directors, because I think Lenny is so special and so wonderful, and kind of really helps set up the whole story. But there is a definite shift when it comes to block two, and I think it was probably quite good to have a different sort of perspective. And Hetty was so wonderful at kind of, she really had a very detailed idea of my character, which I felt was brilliant. It felt she was very sensitive to Marianne, and particularly because Marianne goes through quite a dark time, but it's quite in the writing of what Marianne's going through. It's almost like really from episode 7 she's starting to go on quite a downward spiral, but it's a very soft, subtle thing that's happening. It's not very present. So she was really helpful in helping me map that, and she would give us like secret notes, which I always loved. So she would, like, if the camera was on me, she would give the notes to Paul instead of to me. So she'd be like, give Daisy like a really cold reading to see how she reacts, which was really fun, because it meant that it was taking the pressure off you. You were just able to be really reactive the whole time, because you didn't have to worry about unorganically creating something. You were just playing with every different take, which was really fun. And she was just wonderful. And it was it was only the second time I'd ever worked with a female director, and I just found that really a special experience. So yeah, she's brilliant.
And what was special about it?
Well, yeah, just the fact that I haven't seen, I'd never worked with that many female directors before, and it's always that thing when you see that and you think, oh, maybe I could do that, and I was like, oh, maybe I could direct one day. And it was just a really incredible thing to see, because we had in the second block we had a female director, a female first AD, team of female writers, female director, female cinematographer. I was like, oh, that's really cool. I've never really seen that, and I hope that and they were all really brilliant but in terms of like them being women didn't make any difference, but it was more just inspiring to see that for me, because I thought maybe that's something I could one day do myself, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I want to ask about the cinematographer that came on for the second block, Kate McCullough. I'm wondering, like, after you've been with this character for a while, like, what do you tell them when they're coming on board about, how to light, how to shoot you?
Yeah, I mean, nothing. Yeah, just like, they know. I mean, Kate's incredible, as was Susie, and she sort of so brilliant. I didn't have to sort of tell her everything. I'm more like, tell me what to do. She was wonderful, and I thought it was really interesting, the kind of difference in cinematography, because Susie was very handheld and quite very, very close, and it was kind of brilliant, because then when it moved to Kate's block, which was a lot more rigs and a lot more distant, it almost felt like the camera was kind of growing up in some way, and becoming more mature, which I thought was really exciting, because you've got the energy of the like handheld in the first block, and Susie's shots are just so beautiful and so energized, and then the kind of more measured, sort of distant shots of the second block. I just thought that was really interesting.
For those ninth and 10th episodes, you each kind of get to go off and, be in your own story. Connell, he's going to therapy, you're getting bruised. Can you talk about not working with him and kind of leading your own episode?
Mm. Yeah, it was strange, because we'd spent so much time together, and we had such a kind of shorthand of how to work when we were, in a scene with each other. So it was kind of strange then being on our own. It was like, oh gosh, this is odd, and it's funny, because those characters, they come alive when they're with each other. That is just the pull of the story, is that those two characters make each other better, which I think is amazing. So it was strange then to play those scenes on our own, but it really kind of helped, because I did really miss Paul, and I guess Marianne really misses Connell, so it was able to kind of play those scenes that it wasn't too hard to kind of find that sort of solitudeness that Marianne gets to when it came to filming it. You know what I mean?
So it's very late this year, but we're finally getting up to Emmy voting. I think you have maybe the most competitive category of the year with Outstanding Lead Actress in a Limited Series or Movie. If you were nominated, what clip from the show would you want them to play during the ceremony when your name came up?
That's a hard question. There's maybe either there's a big scene in episode 5 where Marianne asks Connell if he ever thought about asking her to the Debs, and he says no, and that's quite a nice long scene. So maybe that, or there's some stuff in episode 11 that I'm quite proud of. The whole story of when they're on the bed eating the ice lollies, and it develops into something, and she has a run in with her brother, and they drive off into the distance, and she's got a bloody nose. I just think that whole episode is quite special. And then I guess maybe episode 9, when Marianne's listening to Connell speak, because that was quite a difficult thing to film, but I think, yeah, that is maybe quite a good depiction, but it's quite hard to choose, to be honest. So yeah, sorry, I didn't really give you a few things on what they maybe would do.
Maybe you'll get nominated at the Golden Globes and the SAG Awards, and they can each play a different one. So the show is quite insular. We see these two characters the whole time. Other characters come and go. I'm wondering if there are any of those other characters, other actors that you worked with that you wished that the show had really dug into a bit more.
Yeah, I mean, I think what's really interesting about the TV adaptation of the book is that you get to see more of a kind of, I guess, nuanced depiction of particular characters, like Marianne's family, because in the book you only get her perspective, and obviously ultimately it's a bit biased, but when it comes to the series, you're able to see those characters living and breathing and actually reacting to Marianne in a moment. And so I would be curious to explore Denise and Allan a little bit more, because I think they just did such a beautiful job of showing nuance in those characters. Like Denise, you realize that Denise has a huge amount of scar tissue, and you wonder, like, I wonder what her history is, and her context. And same with Frank, who played Allan. It just brought such a kind of interest to Allan. I wonder what's driving him, and why he is the way he is, and what his context is too. So maybe Denise and Allan.
Now, going way back, was there a performance that you saw maybe in your childhood that you thought like, this is great acting and like this is why I want to do what I'm doing now?
Yeah. I think maybe it was probably when I was 14 and I watched Romeo and Juliet for school, and I saw Claire Danes do her Juliet, and I just thought it was incredible because I was like, she was similar to my age, and I'd never just seen an actress, yeah, my own age be so brilliant, and she just has such incredible depth of emotion that I was like, oh, I'd love to be an actor. I'd love to be able to do that. So yeah.
So this is going to run next week, so I don't really know what I'm talking about here, but people will be familiar with the Normal Older People special.
Oh yeah.
So what can you say about that collaboration with Comic Relief?
So the Normal Older People actually isn't us. It's a different couple of actors from Ireland. So we did a different. We've done a different sort of special sketch. I can't really say too much, but it was really fun to do. I can't really say too much about it, but yeah, I hope you enjoy it. It's quite funny. It's just it was fun to kind of play those characters again, even in just a very small moment.
And finally, people have been talking about the show, since they watched it, and they've just kind of been talking about it since then. Is there anything that you have learned from the show, from reading, various theories or checking out other interviews that you didn't know when you were shooting?
I mean, I think it's so funny. Like, it's been funny reading the stuff about Connell's chain and Marianne's bangs, and also I read a little bit about someone being horrified about Marianne leaving her ice cream on the floor in episode 11. And I know that was because I didn't want to have to eat like 20 ice creams because we were filming that so many takes of that scene. But yeah, I mean, I guess like what's been really wonderful is reading people's theories about the show who haven't read the book, and they're similar to the questions and thoughts I had when I read the book. So that's really nice because it means you go, oh, I did communicate that, because it's so beautifully done in the book. You just want to hope that people leave the series with a similar kind of takeaway, and similar feelings. So that's been really lovely. But yeah, I guess I've learned that the chain was, really significant, which I didn't feel like at the time.
All right, Daisy. Well, thanks for those insights. To our viewers, you can check out my interview with Lenny Abrahamson on our channel, and you can go to goldderby.com to make your own Emmy predictions.
Thank you.